The stars were endless, and the silence of space felt heavy as Jake floated through the galaxy in his small, damaged spacecraft. He had been traveling alone for months, exploring distant planets and gathering data for the Earth exploration program. Everything had been routine, until the crash. The sudden jolt of his ship colliding with an unknown asteroid was enough to shake him awake from his sleep. He scrambled to control the spacecraft, but it was too late. Sparks flew, and the ship spun out of control. Jake fought with the controls, but the damage was done. His ship was going down, and there was nothing he could do about it. When the dust settled, Jake found himself on an alien planet. The atmosphere was breathable, but the planet itself was unlike anything he had seen. Strange, twisted trees towered above him, their roots twisting into the air, and glowing bioluminescent flowers bloomed on every side. It felt like stepping into another world, one that didn't belong to the stars of his home. He didn't have much time to assess the situation before a soft, melodic voice broke through the strange silence. "Are you lost, human?" Jake spun around, hand reaching instinctively for his blaster. What he saw made his heart race, though not from fear. At least, not exactly. Standing before him was a woman, but she was unlike any woman he had ever seen. She had long, flowing silver hair that shimmered in the light, and her skin was a deep shade of violet, almost glowing against the twilight backdrop. Her eyes were bright, iridescent, and full of curiosity. She was dressed in simple, but elegant, alien attire. Her clothes made of some kind of flexible, silken material that clung to her form but shimmered like liquid light. Despite her beauty, there was something about her that unsettled Jake. She was clearly not human. "I'm not lost," Jake replied, trying to sound confident. "I'm stranded. My ship has crash-landed," she finished for him, her voice calm and smooth, yet full of understanding. "I know, I saw it." Jake's gaze darted to the horizon. He had no idea where he was, and his ship was beyond repair. He needed help, and it seemed that this alien was his only chance. Jake," he said awkwardly. "Do you know where I am?" The alien woman nodded, her eyes scanning him with what seemed like a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "You are on my planet, Delora," she said, taking a step closer. "But you are lucky to be here, human. The atmosphere is dangerous to your kind." Jake frowned. "Then why aren't you, well, struggling to breathe?" The woman smiled softly, showing her sharp, elegant teeth. "I am not human." Jake nodded, trying to process the information. Of course she wasn't human, she was an alien. But the real question was, how would she help him get back to Earth? "I can help you," she said, as though reading his thoughts. "But it will take time. You will need to stay with me until we can find a solution." Jake wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea of relying on a stranger, especially one who looked so otherworldly. But he had no choice. His ship was in pieces, and the only thing he had left was his survival instinct. "All right," he said. "Finally. I don't suppose you have any tools, or—" "I do," she interrupted, stepping forward and raising a hand. "But first we must address your needs. I can't let you wander through this world without understanding the customs of my people. If you want to survive, you must trust me." Jake blinked, confused. "Customs?" She smiled again, her expression softening. "Humans sleep differently, do you not?" Jake was taken aback. "What do you mean by that?" The alien woman stepped closer, her violet eyes now gleaming with fascination. "Humans sleep together. You sleep in pairs, yes?" Jake's face flushed slightly, unsure of how to respond. He wasn't exactly comfortable talking about human customs with a complete stranger, especially one from another world. We do sometimes," he said, his voice faltering. "But I don't think it's relevant right now. I need to get back to Earth." "You don't understand," she said gently. "For my people, sleep is not just about rest. It is about connection. The physical closeness allows us to communicate without words, to share energy." Jake tried to suppress a laugh, but he couldn't help himself. "You're telling me that you need to sleep with me? That's—" The woman's expression shifted. There was no anger in her gaze, only a deep curiosity. "Yes, For the sake of your survival and mine, I need to stay close to you. It is the way my kind has always been." Jake stared at her, his mind racing. This was getting stranger by the second, but there was something in her eyes that stopped him from arguing. She wasn't asking in a way that made him uncomfortable. She wasn't demanding, just suggesting. And honestly, what choice did he have? You're saying it's for survival?" Jake asked cautiously. The woman nodded. "Yes, I cannot leave you in this world alone. But in return, you must stay with me." For a moment, Jake said nothing. His survival instincts screamed at him to run, to avoid getting too attached to this strange woman from another planet. But the loneliness of space had worn him down, and, oddly enough, he found himself agreeing. "All right," he said quietly, "but this is strange." "Everything about this place is strange, Jake," she replied. "You have no idea." As the night fell and the two of them settled into the alien camp, Jake found himself in an unfamiliar situation. This alien woman, with her strange customs and soft violet skin, was about to become his only companion on this lonely planet. And whether he was ready for it or not, she wasn't leaving his side. The alien woman led Jake through the dense forest of Thalora, her movements graceful and sure. The plants around them seemed to pulse with a soft, otherworldly light, and strange creatures scurried through the underbrush, their glowing eyes watching from the shadows. The air was thick with an unfamiliar scent, sweet and earthy, and the atmosphere felt heavy, as though the planet itself was alive. Jake followed her, keeping his distance but also feeling a strange pull. He had no idea where she was taking him or what she planned to do, but he knew one thing for sure. She was his only chance of survival. "My name is Lyra," the alien woman said, glancing back over her shoulder with a soft smile. "But you may call me by that or whatever you prefer. We are not so formal in my culture." Jake nodded, trying to keep his thoughts straight. "All right, Lyra, I'm Jake. So what exactly are we doing here? Is this some kind of shelter?" Lyra's smile widened as she pushed aside a thick vine and revealed a large dome-shaped structure made of strange metallic material. It seemed to shimmer in the light, almost like liquid metal, and its surface hummed softly. "This is where I live," she explained. "It is not much, but it will keep us safe. For now." Jake stepped forward cautiously. The structure was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't a building in the traditional sense, it was more like a living, breathing organism made from some kind of biometal. The walls seemed to pulse with a quiet rhythm, and Jake could almost feel the energy inside. Once inside, Lyra motioned for Jake to sit. He hesitated but did as she asked, taking a seat on a smooth, glowing surface in the center of the room. The air inside felt cooler, more comfortable, and there was a faint scent of flowers in the breeze. He felt himself relax, but the unease still lingered in the back of his mind. Lyra sat down across from him, her violet eyes studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You're wondering why I want you to stay with me," she said softly. Jake nodded, his heart racing. "Yeah, to be honest, I don't really get it. Why do you want to sleep with me? I don't mean to be rude, but it just seems strange." Lyra tilted her head, her silver hair falling over her shoulder. "It is strange to you, I understand. But to my people, it is a necessary part of our survival. We need connection to stay healthy, emotionally, physically. I can feel the energy of another person when we are close, and it helps me recharge, if you will." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Recharge?" She nodded. "Yes. The process is different for you humans. I think you use sleep to rest. For us, sleep is also a way of connecting with others on a deeper level. It's not just about the body, but about the mind and soul." Jake was still processing everything. This whole situation was surreal. He was stranded on an alien planet, relying on a strange woman with violet skin and glowing eyes for survival. He had no idea how to feel about it. "So," Lyra continued, "in order for you to survive here, you must allow me to stay close. I am not asking you to do anything more than that. Just stay with me. It will help both of us." Jake shifted uncomfortably. You keep saying survive. Do you think something's going to happen to me if we don't do this? Lyra's gaze softened and she looked away, her eyes distant for a moment. The planet is dangerous for your kind. It has a way of draining energy from those who do not belong here. If you try to venture out alone, you will grow weak. The atmosphere, the wildlife, the terrain, it's all too much for your body. You'll need me, Jake. I am the only one who can help you. Jake thought about her words for a moment. He was a trained astronaut, used to survival situations, but this planet was unlike anything he had encountered. Maybe she was right. Maybe he did need her. But still, the idea of sharing a bed with an alien woman, no matter how helpful she was, felt wrong. It wasn't just about the physical closeness, it was the intimacy, the emotions that came with it. Humans didn't just sleep with anyone, let alone someone from another world. Lyra seemed to sense his hesitation. She stood and walked over to a large glowing stone in the corner of the room, placing her hand gently on its surface. The stone lit up, casting soft blue light over the room. I will respect your boundaries, Jake. I do not ask for more than you can give. But you must understand, it's not just a custom for us. It is a necessity. Jake sighed, rubbing his forehead. He wanted to protest, but deep down he knew he had no other options. He couldn't survive on his own, and he couldn't afford to be stubborn. He had to trust her, at least for now. All right, he said, his voice reluctant. I'll do it, but just for a little while, to get me back on my feet. After that, we can figure out something else. Lyra's eyes softened, a look of gratitude crossing her face. Thank you, Jake. You will not regret this. Later that night, as the stars above Thalora twinkled like scattered diamonds, Jake found himself lying in a soft, comfortable bed in the alien structure. Lyra lay beside him, her presence warm and calming. Her silver hair fanned out around her like a silken blanket, and she seemed to glow in the dim light. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Jake felt a strange sense of peace settle over him, even though he couldn't quite explain why. There was something soothing about having her nearby, even if he didn't fully understand it. Eventually, Lyra turned to face him. You are safe. Now, Jake, sleep and you will feel better. Jake nodded, but his thoughts were a whirlwind. He closed his eyes, trying to push away the confusion and uncertainty. All he could do now was trust her and hope that everything would make sense eventually. As he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead for him on this strange world, and how much more he would learn about Lyra and her people. The days on Thalora blended together as Jake tried to adjust to his new life on this strange alien world. The mornings were quiet, filled with soft sunlight filtering through the biometal walls of Lyra's home. The afternoons were spent exploring the area around the structure, with Lyra showing him how to gather food, locate water, and avoid the dangerous creatures that roamed the land. Despite the strangeness of it all, Jake found a sense of routine. Lyra was patient with him, answering his questions about the planet, its people, and her strange customs. She was eager to teach him, but there was one thing that still made him uneasy: her insistence that they share the same bed at night. At first, Jake had reluctantly agreed. He understood that it was important for her, for their survival. But now a week had passed and the closeness was starting to feel strange. Lyra's presence beside him at night wasn't uncomfortable in the physical sense. Her warmth, her soft breathing, the quiet rhythm of her body all felt natural. But emotionally, Jake was still struggling to accept this new reality. He had always been a solitary person, someone who preferred his own space. The idea of being so close to someone, especially an alien, was difficult to grasp. And yet, every night, Lyra would curl up next to him, and the connection between them seemed to grow stronger. She would often rest her head on his shoulder, her violet eyes closed, and Jake would find himself unable to pull away. One evening, as they sat on a flat rock, watching the twin moons of Thalora rise in the sky, Jake couldn't hold it in any longer. Lyra, he began, his voice hesitant, I need to talk to you about something. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with curiosity. "What is it, Jake?" I don't know if I can keep doing this," he said, his words coming out more quickly than he intended. "I mean, the sleeping together part. It's not what I'm used to, and I don't know how to feel about it." Lyra's expression softened, and she placed a hand gently on his arm. "I understand your discomfort," she said quietly. "It is not easy to change your way of life. I did not mean to cause you distress, but it is necessary for both our survival, as I have explained." Jake shook his head. "I get it, I really do. But it's not just about survival. I'm struggling with the emotional part of it. Being so close to you all the time, it gets confusing for me." Lyra studied him for a moment, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "I did not mean for you to feel overwhelmed," she said softly. "But I do not know how to explain it any other way. This is the way my people connect. It is not about love or affection in the way humans experience it. It is about energy, about balance." Jake was silent for a long moment, his thoughts tangled. "I don't know if I can do this, Lyra. It's too much for me right now." Lyra's face faltered for a moment, a shadow of disappointment crossing her features, but she quickly masked it with a gentle smile. "I understand. I will respect your boundaries, Jake. I will not push you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable." Jake let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. It was a relief to hear her say that. "Thank you. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I need space. I need to think." For the first time in days, Jake found a moment of clarity. He needed time to process everything, to figure out where he stood in all of this. He had spent years alone in space, but this was different. The feeling of another person so close to him day and night was something he had never experienced before. He wasn't sure if he was ready for it. Lyra nodded, her smile returning. "Of course. Take the time you need. I will not leave. I will be here when you are ready." The next few days were filled with quiet tension. Jake spent more time outside, walking through the strange landscape trying to clear his mind. Lyra gave him space, but she never strayed far. She always kept an eye on him, as if waiting for him to return to her side when he was ready. It wasn't long before Jake realized something. He was still struggling with the emotional weight of the situation, but he wasn't entirely alone in his discomfort. Lyra, too, was grappling with the strange bond between them. He had seen her sit alone sometimes, staring out at the horizon with a faraway look in her eyes, as though she, too, was trying to make sense of the connection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra approached Jake as he sat on a rock staring up at the sky. Her violet eyes were filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Jake," she said softly, sitting beside him, "I know this is difficult, but I want you to know that I do not expect anything from you. I only ask that you trust me. I'm not asking for something from you that you are not ready to give." Jake turned to her, his chest tightening. "I'm not sure what I'm ready to give," he admitted, "but I don't want to leave. I don't want to push you away." Lyra smiled, her eyes soft and understanding. "You are not pushing me away, Jake. You are simply finding your way, we both are." That night, Jake found himself once again lying beside Lyra. This time, however, something had shifted. The tension between them had eased, and he no longer felt as though he was being suffocated by her presence. It wasn't exactly comfortable, but it wasn't as difficult as it had been before. He was still unsure about the connection between them, but as he lay there, feeling her warmth beside him, Jake realized that maybe it didn't need to be understood right away. Maybe, for now, he just needed to accept it. Tomorrow, they would continue their journey together. But tonight, Jake was no longer fighting the bond between them. For the first time, he felt like he could let go. The days on Thalora grew more peaceful as Jake began to adjust to his life with Lyra. Despite the strange customs and constant tension between them, he couldn't deny that he was starting to feel a strange sense of belonging on this alien world. The planet's vibrant colors, its odd creatures, and even the eerie glow of the sky were beginning to feel less alien and more like home. Lyra continued to guide him, teaching him about the planet's resources, its unique plants, and how to survive in its wild environment. She had a quiet confidence about her, a calm that Jake found both comforting and unsettling. Her words were always measured, but there was a kindness in her voice that made it hard to resist her presence. Even when she was not speaking, there was an unspoken connection between them, a bond that was hard to ignore. Despite this, Jake still found himself unsure about the deeper feelings Lyra seemed to be developing for him. At night, she would curl up next to him as they slept, her body warm against his. He didn't mind the closeness anymore, but there was still something unspoken between them, something he couldn't figure out. Was she simply following her people's customs, or was there more to it? He wasn't sure, but he didn't want to assume anything. One afternoon, as they walked through the lush alien forest, Lyra stopped abruptly and pointed toward the horizon. "There," she said quietly, "is where the healing springs are. We will rest there for the night." Jake followed her gaze, seeing a small cluster of glowing pools surrounded by tall, shimmering trees. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and Jake felt a strange pull to the area. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The sight was both beautiful and calming, and for the first time since his arrival on Thalora, Jake felt a sense of peace settle in his chest. As they approached the springs, the warm glow from the pools reflected on the smooth stones around them. Lyra knelt beside one of the pools, touching the surface with the tips of her fingers. "The water here has healing properties," she explained. "It will help you recover, both physically and emotionally." Jake sat beside her, dipping his fingers into the cool, glowing water. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever felt. It was as if the water was alive, gently vibrating beneath his skin, calming his restless mind. The feeling was soothing, and Jake found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in days. "Thank you for bringing me here," Jake said, his voice soft. "I didn't know what to expect from this planet, but it's starting to grow on me." Lyra smiled, her violet eyes glowing softly in the light of the healing springs. "I am glad you are beginning to see its beauty. Thalora is a peaceful world, but it has its dangers. We must respect it if we want to live here." Jake nodded, his thoughts drifting. Despite the peaceful surroundings, he couldn't help but feel like something was missing. He had spent most of his life on Earth, and no matter how much he enjoyed Lyra's company, he couldn't shake the longing for his home. He didn't belong here. Not really. Earth was his world, and Thalora, with its strange customs and alien ways, was not. "Do you miss your home?" Lyra asked, as if reading his thoughts. Jake glanced at her, surprised. "I do. Every day, it's hard not to. I miss the people, the cities, the sounds. I even miss the smell of rain on Earth." Lyra looked thoughtful, her eyes distant for a moment. "I understand," she said softly. "My people are not from Thalora. We come from another world, much farther away. We made this planet our home because it was the only place where we could survive. But sometimes, I wish I could go back to the stars, to the world I once knew." Jake was surprised to hear her speak like this. Lyra had always seemed so certain about everything, but hearing her admit to missing her home made her seem more human. She was more like him than he had realized. "Do you think we'll ever get back?" Jake asked, his voice quiet. "I mean, do you think you can help me fix my ship?" Lyra nodded slowly. "I will help you, Jake, but we must be patient. The ship is damaged beyond what I know how to fix, but there are others on Thalora who might be able to help. We just need to find them." Jake thought for a moment, his eyes fixed on the healing springs. "Do you think they'll help us?" "They will," Lyra said with confidence. "But it will take time. There are many different cultures on this planet, and not all of them are friendly to outsiders. We must be careful." Jake nodded, his mind racing. He wasn't sure how much longer he could stay on Thalora, or if he would ever be able to return to Earth. But for now, all he could do was trust Lyra and hope she could help him find a way back. Later that night, as they sat by the glowing pools, Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the light. Jake, I know you are still struggling with our bond, but I want you to know that you do not have to feel anything you are not ready to feel. I am not asking you to love me. I am asking you to trust me, to let me help you. Jake looked at her, his chest tightening. He had grown used to having her close at night, to feeling her warmth beside him as they slept. He had grown used to the bond between them, even if he didn't fully understand it. I trust you, Jake said, his voice firm. I'm just not sure what comes next. Lyra smiled softly, her hand reaching out to touch his. That is all I ask for, Jake. Take your time. We will figure it out together. As they sat there in the glow of the healing springs, Jake felt something shift within him. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't alone. He had Lyra beside him, guiding him through the strange and unfamiliar world of Thalora. And for now, that was enough. The days on Thalora had become easier for Jake. He was beginning to understand the rhythms of the planet and the ways of its strange, peaceful creatures. The sense of isolation that had haunted him at the beginning had started to fade, replaced by a quiet connection with Lyra. He still missed Earth, still longed for his home, but he had come to accept that Thalora was now a part of his life. Lyra, too, seemed to be adapting. Her presence beside him at night was no longer uncomfortable. It was a shared comfort, something that had become part of their routine. She never pushed him, never demanded more than he was willing to give. But he could sense that her feelings for him were growing deeper, even though she never spoke of them. One morning, as the suns of Thalora began to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the landscape, Jake woke up to find Lyra sitting beside him. She was looking out at the horizon, her eyes thoughtful, her expression soft. "Good morning," Jake said, stretching and rubbing his eyes. Lyra turned to him and smiled, though her smile seemed tinged with a hint of sadness. "Good morning, Jake. I was thinking about something." Jake sat up, curiosity piqued. "What's on your mind?" Lyra paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I've been thinking about your world, Earth. I wonder what it must be like to come from a place with so many different people, so much history. Sometimes, I forget that you're not from here. I forget that you have your own story, your own home." Jake was silent for a moment, his thoughts drifting back to Earth, the cities, the noise, the crowded streets, the people he had known. It felt so far away now, almost like a dream. "I miss it," Jake admitted quietly. "I miss the little things, the sounds, the smells, the way everything feels familiar. I didn't think I'd ever feel homesick like this, but I do. Even though Thalora is beautiful, it's not mine." Lyra nodded, her violet eyes understanding. "I can feel your longing. I think sometimes it is hard to be far from where you belong." Jake looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and confusion in his gaze. "And you? Do you ever feel homesick? Do you ever miss your people?" Lyra's eyes darkened for a moment, and for the first time Jake saw a flicker of vulnerability in her. "Yes, I miss them. I miss my home, my family. But we left because it was no longer safe. We had to make Thalora our home, even though it's not the world I once knew, but I have found something here, something unexpected." Jake's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Lyra turned to face him fully, her hand reaching out to touch his. "I never expected to find someone like you, a human. I never expected to care for another being in this way. But I do, Jake. You are different from anyone I've ever met. You have taught me things I didn't know I needed to learn. About connection, about trust, and She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "I care for you." Jake felt a rush of emotions, surprise, warmth, and something deeper he hadn't allowed himself to recognize until now. He had been so focused on surviving, on trying to find a way home, that he hadn't truly stopped to think about what was happening between him and Lyra. She had been his guide, his protector, his companion on this strange journey. But in that moment he realized she had become something more to him too. "I care for you too," he said, his voice steady. I never expected this either. At first I thought I'd just survive, get by. But now, I don't want to go back to Earth without you. Lyra's face softened and a gentle smile curved her lips. Then we have something more than survival, Jake. We have each other. They sat together in silence, watching the suns rise higher in the sky. The landscape of Thalora was breathtaking, an alien beauty, yet in that moment it felt like home. Jake realized that no matter how far he was from Earth, no matter how strange Thalora was, it was the people he was with that made all the difference. The bond between him and Lyra had changed. It wasn't just about survival anymore, not just about physical closeness. It was about trust, about companionship, about learning from each other. They were no longer just two beings from different worlds. They had become a part of each other's lives in a way neither of them had expected. Later that day, after a long walk through the glowing forests, Lyra led Jake to a quiet spot by a crystal-clear river. The water sparkled under the light of the two moons, and the air was filled with the sound of soft rustling leaves. It was peaceful here, away from the hustle and bustle of the planet's wild creatures. It felt safe. "I've been thinking," Lyra said, her voice gentle. "Perhaps it is time for us to move forward, to find a way to build a future here together." Jake turned to her, surprised by the depth of her words. "A future?" he echoed. "You mean, with Thalora? You want us to stay here?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but not just for survival. I want to build something with you. We've learned to live here. We've learned to trust each other. I think we could have a life here, Jake. Together." Jake felt a rush of warmth in his chest. He had never imagined that a life on an alien world could feel like anything more than a temporary stop. But as he looked into Lyra's eyes, he realized she was offering him something real, something he never expected. "Maybe you're right," Jake said, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Maybe this is home now." For the first time since his crash on Thalora, Jake felt a sense of peace settle over him. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He had found a connection, a reason to stay. And no matter how far he was from Earth, he knew he wasn't alone. He reached out, taking Lyra's hand in his, and together they watched the moons rise higher in the sky, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together.